Rejoice, everyone. We're back with another Sekhie Reacts to Fate. This week, Richard the Lionheart. Although, if you couldn't tell, we're live because Sekhie forgot to remove the live chat. Thank you, Sekhie.
I turned the audacity on.
So, yeah, Richard the Lionheart and Robin Hood. Although I think the both of us spent a lot longer on Robin Hood than we thought we would.
Well, Robin Hood is altogether a more detailed character when it comes to, and not historically, but literarily, there's more to do with Robin Hood because it's a story that's been added to over the years. But actually with that, I do just want to get into the script I wrote because the script I wrote does have like fun little interjections and stuff. So I don't want to spoil too much of that before I get into it. So we're going to start with an excerpt from Sonnet 3 by John Hamilton Reynolds, right, about Robin Hood. With coat of Lincoln green, and mantle too, and horn of ivory mouth, and buckle bright, and arrows, winged, with peacock feathers light, and trusty bow well gathered of the yew, stands Robin Hood, and near, with eyes of blue.
And my job is to tell it like it is, or was, or whatever.
Robin Hood is one of the most prolific legends of English folklore. He is a rogue and an outlaw, but he's still a folk hero. As a character, he's been featured in numerous works of literature, cinema, theater, and media. Outside of a collective framing story like those possessed by King Arthur and his knights or the Cthulhu mythos, his mission, his ethics, his companions, his personality, and his actions have truly changed significantly over the last 700 years, with new editions being regularly made by new authors. Like William Tell, he's regularly been used as a representative of ideals and counter-movements, and both his historical origin and the possibility of his name in use as an alias has been debated by scholars of Robin Hood. While the core of our literary tale will begin about 200 years later, in the latter half of the 15th century, I feel beholden to harken back to the earliest mention of our titular character, as he appears in a much earlier work, The Visions of Piers Plowman, wherein the prologue makes clear that tales of the outlaw Robin Hood are well known to our author and his readers. Not only are they well known, but they are also associated with a character named Sloth, a member of the clergy who would rather learn these tales than his Paternoster, or the Lord's Prayer. He says in this passage, "If I should die, be this day me list not to loke, I cannot perfectly my Paternoster, as the prest it singth, but I can rhymes of Robin Hood and Randolph, Earl of Chester, and neither of our Lord nor of our Lady the less that ever were made." Such a mention stands to prove the popularity of Robin Hood in the cultural memory as a historical figure from years past. He's associated here with Randolph, Earl of Chester, the third of his name, who fought beside Richard the Lionheart in 1194, 200 years before Langland's Visions of Piers Plowman. Thus we establish a possible link to a real historical figure, and a folk hero extant in the cultural memory for over 400 years before the first collection of ballads were available to us, such ballads surviving from the earliest at the 15th century. Important to note, however, is that we cannot list a non-existence of any earlier literary mentions, only that we don't have any extant, and Robin Hood appears only in a single line of one of 3 versions of the Piers Plowman text, version B as it is commonly known. Version B is the most frequently translated, as it revises text version A by adding 4,000 lines to the poem, but the 3-version hypothesis currently suggests that B was produced between the years of 1377 and 1379, and version C was then meant to further revise version B. Version C shortens the overall text and removes the mention of Robin Hood. However, in the 1400s, Robin Hood appears twice as a proverb and complaint respectively in other works of literature. In the 1402 Friar Dawes Reply, it says, "And many men speaken of Robin Hood, and shot never in his bow." And in the 1405 to 1410 work, Dives and Pauper, it says that people would rather listen to tales and songs of Robin Hood than attend Mass, which does echo his mention in Piers Plowman from Langland. I think it fits us then to begin with the consideration of a singular question. Knick-knack, do you think that Robin Hood might be of origin in the mythology of England, with tales like Robin Goodfellow, also known as Puck, Is he of some mythological genealogy the same as fairies and kobolds like the Hodekin with his little hat or hode? Maybe they were brought to England alongside other Germanic traditions, as Reginald Scott proposed in 1584 in his A Discovery of Witchcraft.
I don't know. Why are you asking me?
Actually, I thought you might be interested in that.
Do I look like I'm interested in British people?
Oh, shut the fuck up. I personally don't think that either of these theories have a significant amount of weight, nor the one that associates him with a pagan cult. But it is a pretty interesting detour in the scholarship of early Robin Hood origins. Moving away from such improbable connections, we cover the early ballads of the late 15th and early 16th centuries. I have a passage here on screen written in Old English and then slightly translated into modern English. "Lithe and listen, gentlemen, that be of freeborn blood, I shall tell you of a good yeoman. His name was Robin Hood." Here is a good place to clarify, because you're going to hear this word several more times in our script. Yeoman is from the Middle English, and it refers to a man who either owns or cultivates land, or to someone who is in the middle ranks of servants in an English royal or noble household. It was also popularly used for longbow archers of the 100 Years' War. The English longbow of this period was 5 to 6 feet tall, with a draw weight between 80 to 180 pounds, according to various sources, and it had a range of up to 400 yards or 370 meters. These longbows required immense strength, and skeletal research shows that those who used these regularly had enlarged muscle attachments and bone growths in the left arm. They were powerful enough to pierce armor, which defined their value, and it led to encouragement by monarchs for all men of England to practice their use in case of being called to war. A fundamental text to the early Robin Hood tradition is the poetic Middle English verse, A Gest of Robin Hood. At a little over 1,800 lines, it is the longest of the early ballads, and it tells of the yeoman Robin Hood and Little John, featuring Sir Richard at the Lee, the villainous abbot of St. Mary's Abbey. Keep that in mind, it's important, we'll come back to it later. Mervyn, the sheriff of Nottingham, and King Edward. Featured as well are Merry Manly Men, Much the Miller's Son, and William Scarlock, which would later etymologically evolve into William Scarlet O'Hara. In the Gest, we are introduced to Robin's creed as he replies to Little John, who asks what he wishes them to do. He says that they shall do nothing to the husband who ploughs his field, or the yeoman who walks in good faith, or the knight and squire who are good folk, but from those like the corrupt clergy and sheriff of Nottingham, and those who are uncouth, those with riches to spare, they will take their due, defined here as being bound to take a beating. This is the earliest iteration of Robin Hood's morals, which are more connected to his professed faith in the Virgin Mary than later iterations which focus on his social aspects.
I steal from the rich and give to the needy, but I'm not greedy.
Robin as a man who robs from the rich to give to the poor will not appear in the literary tradition until the 1592 Annals of England. In this first fit, or section, Robin hears the tragic tale of the sorrowful knight Sir Richard at the Lee, who has been done wrong by the abbot. He lends the knight the money necessary to save his land, as well as fabric to clothe himself in the colours of Robin, green and red here, a horse, boots, and Little John to be the knight's yeoman, with the condition that he meets him in 12 months to repay the kindness done him after his fortune's turn. And this is all made on guarantee of faith to the Virgin Mary, which to Robin is as good as gold. The second fit begins with the knight entreating the others at the abbey to understand his plight, and after they refuse, the repayment of his debt in full using the loan given to him by Robin. Sir Richard then returns home, telling his wife to pray for Robin Hood, that ever his soul be in bliss. He then spends time acquiring the money necessary to repay the loan, as well as 100 bows, 100 sheaves of arrows, and 100 men to take with him on his return to Barnesdale, where he is to meet Robin. On the road to Barnesdale, he meets a yeoman who's about to be killed, and he stops to defend him, treating him to the same hospitality that Robin once showed him. In the third fit, we follow Little John and the Sheriff of Nottingham, and this fit takes place contemporaneously with the second, which we have just discussed. Little John, while serving as Sir Richard's yeoman, impresses the sheriff by slitting the wand 3 times, which is a test of skill for bowmen. This test consisted of shooting at slim sticks in the ground as targets and seeing if you could split the stick in half. Later in cinematic representations of the Robin Hood myth, this would evolve into the splitting of an arrow down to the root in the archery contests. Little John introduces himself to the sheriff as Reynold Green, or Reynold Greenleaf, and is offered a place at his estate among his men for the earnings of 20 marks a year. We get a brief look into Little John's mind, for he was warned of the sheriff by Robin, and the sheriff was one of those at the church with the abbot who refused to help Sir Richard. He says, "Now so God help me," said Little John, "and by my true loyalty, I shall be the worst servant to him that ever yet had he." John faithfully serves the sheriff for a short amount of time, but then misses one of the hunting parties, and when he wakes from his sleep, the butler refuses him dinner, saying that he was not participating in the day's duties. Little John does not take this well, and beats the butler up, and then proceeds to eat a massive amount of food from inside the pantry. The cook comes upon this, and they end up fighting with swords. Little John extends the offer that if the cook can shoot as well as he can use a sword, he should come with John and join Robin. Thus he and the cook proceed to loot the entire house of the sheriff, taking the silverware, 300 pounds, and any other treasures that they can find to Robin in the greenwood. Now, he tells Robin that this is a generous gift, but Robin calls him on his bullshit, and they decide to further trick the sheriff. He returns to the sheriff, and he tells him, "Yonder I saw a right fair hart, his colour is of green, 70 of deer upon a herd, be with him all by dean," which refers to Robin and his 140 men as animals. Upon this discovery of betrayal, the sheriff accuses him of treachery, to which John responds that he was maligned first with the refusal of dinner. They sit down to dine with Robin, and the sheriff sees his own silverware, while Robin tells him that his charity and his love of Little John are what allows him to keep his life, but in return he must serve under Robin for a year as an outlaw. The sheriff begs to be let go and swears an oath to never again harm Robin, and was finally allowed to leave, which ends the fit.
If you promise not to kill Robin, I shall do the most disgusting thing that I can think of.
Oh, and what's that?
I shall marry you.
The fourth fit is predominantly concerned with how Robin believes that the Virgin Mary is angry with him, as the hour in the day grows later, and the night has yet to appear, whilst Little John staunchly defends him and says that he will. As a result of his own aggravation, he attacks a monk from the Abbey of the Virgin Mary and brings him to Robin Hood, who demands of the monk his payment, ignoring the fact that the monk knows nothing of his debt, citing that because the debt was with the Lady Mary as collateral, the monk should be able to pay it. The monk is searched, and what is found on him is about double what Robin is owed. They celebrate their coming into money, and the monk flees. As the daylight fades, Sir Richard finally appears, telling Robin of the tale of the yeoman he aided when his lateness is in question. He attempts to give Robin his owed 400 pounds plus 20 extra, but what Robin returns them and gifts him 400 pounds of the monk's money, and he is left with just the bows and arrows as a gift. Robin is unconcerned by this, directing him to purchase a new horse and livery and return if he ever needs spending money. The fifth fit introduces a common plotline in Robin Hood stories, an archery contest held by the sheriff.
Archery contest? Their archer is unbeatable.
Really?
Robin, promise you won't go.
All right, I promise you won't go.
Thank you.
Robin and Gilbert with the white hand, a soon-to-be merry man, both split the wand 3 times as Little John had. At the tiebreak, Robin bests Gilbert, but as they turn to leave, the sheriff springs his trap. He wounds many of Robin's men, with Little John being crippled by an arrow to the knee. Little John begs Robin, "Let never the proud sheriff alive now find me," but Robin refuses. They flee to the castle of Sir Richard, who takes them in and shuts the gates of his keep to the sheriff, ending the fit. "Lithe and listen, gentlemen, and hearken to your song, how the proud sheriff of Nottingham, and men of arms strong, full fast came to the high sheriff, the country up to rout, and they beset the knight's castle, the walls all about. The proud sheriff loud did cry, and said, Thou traitor knight, thou keepest here the king's enemies, against the law and right." Sir Richard admits that he is harbouring Robin and his men, but he bids the sheriff go to the king and convey the situation in faith for judgment. Nottingham, of course, tells the king that Robin has usurped power, and the king tells him to gather his yeomen and meet him in 2 weeks. Robin in the meantime flees back to the greenwood, and the sheriff lies in wait until he can capture Sir Richard. Sir Richard's wife then takes flight to seek safety with Robin and beg him for her husband's life, since he is now in danger for his love of Robin. What's a little homoeroticism between bros, sanctioned by the wife? Egwene? Catching up to the sheriff, Robin shoots an arrow through his armor, felling him, and then he approaches and beheads him, setting his men upon the sheriff's men, freeing Sir Richard and taking him back to the greenwood, until such a time he may obtain the grace of their good King Edward. In this context, this likely refers to Edward III, based on literary evidence across sources, but all modern pop culture uses Richard I. Thus ending our 6th fit. Beginning the next section, the king arrives in Nottingham, and hearing the side of the men of the sheriff, is understandably upset. He seizes the lands of Richard at the Lee, and swears that he who brings him Richard's head will be awarded with his lands, to be bound to his line as long as it lives. An old knight tells him that as long as Robin lives, this will not come to pass, and in the meantime, while he waits, 6 months pass. The idea is brought to the king, then, to trick Robin by disguising himself and his men as monks and entering the forest to meet with him. Robin, upon meeting with the monks, asks them to spare charity for him and his men, and the king responds that he has only 40 pounds, but if he had 100, he would split it with them. Robin seizes the 40 and splits it in half, returning half to the king and thanking him. The king, disguised as the monk, then pulls out the royal seal and tells Robin that he is bid to Nottingham by the king, and is shocked then by Robin's response. He says, "I love no man in all the world, so well as I do my king. Welcome is my lord's seal, and monk for thy tiding." And Robin then bids him to join them for supper. Following the dinner, Robin hosts a shooting competition, where anyone who missed splitting the wand must be struck in punishment. Robin fails his final shot, and he approaches the king to request his punishment. After successfully persuading him, the king stands up and strikes a blow to Robin so hard that he's forced to fall to the ground, and as he lies on the ground, looking up at the monk, he sees under his disguise, and is joined by Sir Richard, who recognizes the king, and they bow together before him. The king then invites them to join him at court because of their good grace, asking Robin to bring his men. The king holds the fealty of Robin, which continues through the literature once the king transitions to being Richard the Lionheart rather than any of the Edwards. This is one of the staples of the story, faith to uncorrupted monarchs. At the opening of the final fit, number 8, the king asks Robin if he can spare cloaks and livery of his Lincoln green to outfit himself and his men on the journey back, which Robin easily grants. Upon their return to Nottingham, the townspeople and yeomen are afraid of the king having been killed by Robin, and at first they flee, but the king laughs and bids them to stay and make merry. Sir Richard at the Lee's lands are returned to him, and they join the king at court. However, after a year and 3 months of service in court and lavish and excessive spending, the only men who remain loyal to Robin are Little John and Will Scarlock, who are unfazed at this point by their lack of pay. Robin, however, longs for Barnesdale and begs the leave of the king to make a pilgrimage to the Church of the Virgin Mary. Upon shooting a white hart in the forest, the outlaws rejoice of his return, and he stays for 22 years. After this time passes, we learn at the end of the fit about a plot to kill Robin, which is hatched by his kinswoman, the Prioress of Kirklees, and her lover, Sir Roger of Doncaster. She, skilled in bloodletting, slowly bleeds him to death in lieu of treatment for his many ailments. The ballad ends with, "Christ have mercy on his soul that died on the rood, for he was a good outlaw, and did poor men much good." There is, in fact, a grave for Robin at Kirklees, but its dating is to the 1530s at the earliest, and the writing does not match the syntax of the time, and is likely a much later addition. The lord on whose land it rests did partially excavate it, and in the later 1900s after his death, his wife restricted access, and it fell into disrepair, until her death in the 2000s. It is not accessible currently, but it is very unkempt. This longest early work is of an unknown author, but research dictates that it is composed of a portmanteau of 2 Robin traditions, that of Robin in Barnesdale and that of Robin in Nottingham, and is, in essence, a series of stories with some connection woven together. This is one of the Child Ballads, 305 English and Scottish ballads compiled by Francis Child and published together. Contained within the Child collection are 38 or possibly 41 ballads about the adventures of Robin Hood, with the original versions dating from as early as the 13th century and as late as the 15th.
Oh, merry man!
We're men in tights. We roam around the forest looking for fights.
Erlinton, Rose Red, and White Lily are odd due to the structure of not fitting Robin Hood naturally and the existence of a version that does not include Robin Hood as a character. And Willie and Earl Richard's daughter used to be titled The Birth of Robin Hood, but is no longer part of the cycle. Across these tales, many characters are introduced into the Merry Men and Greater Robin Hood cast, including Guy of Gisborne, Arthur the Tanner, the Tinker, Will Scarlock, Little John, the Scotsman, the Forester, Alan a Dale, Will Stutely, Clorinda, Maid Marian, David of Doncaster, King Richard from the 16th century on, and several others. Interesting to note is that Friar Tuck is not included in any of the child ballads by name, but he is in Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham, a 1475 play, the only one surviving from the medieval period to feature Robin, which is fragmented but appears to be a theatrical version of Ballad 118, Robin Hood and Guy of Gisborne. This is important to the literary history of the character, because it represents May Day ritual integration of Robin Hood tales in the Middle Ages, during which time were held Robin Hood games, first recorded in 1426, but likely of much earlier origin. This play is fragmentary, but is likely where both Friar Tuck and Maid Marian, though she is mentioned in other child works, enter the Robin Hood cycle, and they are often associated together. Child pulled his collection heavily from The Relics of Ancient Poetry, which was published in 1765 by Thomas Percy, and based on the Percy Folio, a book of ballads, where some dated as early as the 12th century. This book came into Percy's possession very damaged and heavily annotated by multiple hands, with many pages having already been removed and lost. Interestingly, it also contains Arthurian tales, including 3 that are specific to this folio. 8 of the Robin Hood ballads included in Child are held within it. In 1795, Joseph Ritson also produced a collection of Robin stories, with a heavy slant towards ones that discussed him redistributing wealth between good men. Ritson himself was heavily influenced by Thomas Paine and the original principles of the French Revolution, and has since been described as a Jacobite of radical views. Ritson believed that Robin actually did exist, and proposed Robert Fitzooth as his identity. Later, his friend Sir Walter Scott drew from Ritson's anthology and the writing of Ivanhoe, instrumental to the modern depictions of Robin. Ivanhoe follows the story of Wilfrid de Ivanhoe, an Anglo-Saxon noble who has been cast from favour for joining the Third Crusade with Richard I. The story begins in 1194, after the Third Crusade has failed, and Richard and all his men must travel back to England. However, Richard is held captive by Leopold of Austria, so his men travel largely alone. Wilfrid has been disinherited by his father, Cedric of Rotherwood, who sought to use his ward, Lady Rowena, who Wilfrid fell in love with, to secure an alliance with Lord Ethelstane, a man of presumable Anglo-Saxon descent, who is claiming the right to the throne of England via Harold Godwinson, because his father believes Richard a Norman pretender. The knights traveling with him seek shelter with Cedric of Rotherwood at the same time as a Jewish moneylender named Isaac of York. In the evening, one of the knights, Brian de Bois-Guilbert, gives orders to his Saracens to capture Isaac, who is helped to escape by the palmer who guided them there. To repay this debt, Isaac offers a warhorse and armor for the palmer to use in the tournament being held at Ashby, surprising that the palmer is a knight in disguise. The tournament at Ashby is being run by Prince John, and Cedric, Ethelstane, Rowena, Isaac, and his daughter Rebecca, Robin of Locksley and his men are all in attendance. It begins with a joust where an unknown knight named Destachado defeats Bois-Guilbert, but refuses to reveal himself yet, crowning Rowena as tournament queen. The second day is a melee combat, and Destachado, with the help of Le Noir Fanant, the Black Sluggard, manages to win again with difficulty. His companion sneaks off, but he is unmasked and is exposed to be Wilfrid of Ivanhoe, which creates chaos, as those at the tournament assume this means Richard, who is currently imprisoned, will soon return. Although he won in the melee, he sustained a heavy injury, but Isaac's daughter Rebecca is the only one who moves to help him. She and her father decide to shelter him in York while he recovers. The tournament concludes with amazing feats of archery performed by Robin of Locksley, splitting the yew wand. Prince John then proceeds to host dinner for the locals, insulting their Saxon heritage. On the way to York, Ivanhoe's party is attacked and meets with Cedric's party, and they travel together but are captured. Robin of Locksley then makes plans to rescue them, and the Black Knight who fled overhears such plans and volunteers his aid. Some stuff goes down in the castle as it is besieged between the captors and Rowena and Rebecca, but we'll skip over that. Cedric manages to sneak out and deliver information, and as Robin, the Black Knight, and his men are victorious, the Black Knight reveals himself to be King Richard in disguise. Robin hosts King Richard, while the defeated Bois-Guilbert runs to the temple preceptory, and his story causes Rebecca to be declared a witch. She claims trial by combat and requests a champion from her father. While this is happening, Ethelstane has been presumed dead after the battle, and Cedric hosts his funeral, before he emerges alive and pledges himself to Richard, while telling Cedric to allow Wilfred and Rowena to wed. Isaac's request for a champion then reaches them, and Ivanhoe arrives just in time, while Bois Guilbert tries to throw the fight, and through his stupidity, dies. Ivanhoe and Rowena marry, living a long and happy life, and Rebecca and Isaac leave for Granada to escape further persecution. I have the most horrible experience with Ivanhoe. My dad tried to read it to me as a bedtime story when I was like 5 or 6, and I just have this very distinct memory of how awful of a story it was to try to read as like an 8 or a 9-year-old, even one who was reading well above her like reading level. And my dad struggled with it too because he just never read it before. But my mom swears up and down that Ivanhoe is fantastic. So, you know, even in my own house, there's a 50-50 consensus on whether or not we like Ivanhoe. But it is very important to the representations of Robin Hood.
Begin! Master Robin, is that you? Yes! We're back from the Crusades? Yes! And alive? Yes.
The ballads of Robin share a fair amount and are sorted into 4 categories based on their possible origins. While many elements are similar, there's quite a wide range of tone and plot, with some stories being incredibly violent and others very light-hearted, having plots ranging from recruiting new members to punishing those who defy Robin in any way. Already evident in the narrative is the Sheriff of Nottingham as the villain, the association of longbows and extraordinary archery, hatred of corrupt clergy alongside his faith in the Virgin Mary, and support of the true king, regardless of which particular king they're placing us in.
Robin of Locksley, where is your king? 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 And which king might that be? King Richard? King Louis? King Kong? Larry King?
Interesting to note in these earlier tales is that the courtesy and behaviors of Robin are characterized as good, not in a modern equality context, but in a medieval chivalric form, much like the codes of Arthurian legend under Malory. The ballads feature gestures of obedience and obeisance, and Robin and his men are explicitly yeomen, a term not associated with nobility at this time. Another notable feature of these early parts of the cycle is that due to the familiarity with noble rituals, though, and the idealization of a good man, it's improbable that these tales were composed by peasants, and it's much more likely that they were created in castles and manors to idealize a new class of people developing, ones who had no coat of arms like nobility, but were still socially above mass peasantry in wealth and morality. Regardless, however, of where these stories developed, Robin the Yeoman is to the little folk as Arthur was to the high folk. He's pious to the Virgin, a trait that will later disappear after the Church of England splits away, but a hater of abbots and monks, and an incomparable archer, lover of the hunt and the forest, adventurous, and a strong protector of women. Moving fully into the 15th century, the literary tradition spawns a host of May Day-associated plays and festivities, which historically stretched until the reign of Elizabeth I. As attested by Hutton, May Day was an important holiday in the calendar, with rituals varying across the length and breadth of the country. But one common ritual was the crowning of mock kings, with 24 different locations featuring the mock king being replaced by Robin Hood historically, and the performance of Robin Hood plays from 1450 to 1550. In 1515, for example, Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon were met on an excursion with a cast of over 200 actors dressed as the Merry Men, who took the royals to a private arbor in the woods for a feast. An examination of the royal budget for this event reveals that this cast featured the Lady May, Little John, Friar Tuck, Maid Marian, and Robin Hood himself. Occasionally Robin's lady is also played by a lady named Clorinda the Shepherdess, but in some sources Clorinda the Shepherdess is Little John's wife. There isn't much evidence beyond the presence of familiar characters that there were any additions to the cycle by these events, as most were more focused on the appearance of Robin than the actual narrative of Robin Hood. However, it does remain proof that Robin Hood was being associated with woodlands, outlaws, misbehavior, and charity in the popular mind. These ritual plays and reenactments were not the only theatrical Robin Hood creations in the 1500s, though, as early stage plays for the upper classes also appeared in the late 1500s. In 1585, James VI of Scotland watched a performance of Robin Hood, and the 1598 plays by Mundy, The Downfall and the Death of Robert, Earl of Huntingdon, name Robin as Robert, Earl of Huntingdon, not an actual historical figure. At the time, the title was held by Prince David of Scotland, who was the brother to Malcolm IV the Maiden and William I the Lion, although his grandson did become the grandfather of Robert the Bruce, or Robert I, after the elder royal line had died out. This elevated Robin Hood to a noble status, as well as associated the timeline with Richard I, by tying Maid Marian to the women persecuted by King John, who had succeeded his brother Richard. This elevation of status made it possible to write Robin as a tragic hero rather than a comedic one. A 1599 play would place it in the reign of Edward IV, a central figure of the War of the Roses, but this was likely pandering to the court of Henry VIII, and at one point Lewin ab Iorwerth, the last independent Prince of Wales, the one who strong-armed King John into signing the Magna Carta, played Robin Hood in a play. Additionally, to fix the time period, in the Historia Majoris Britanniae, the time is set to the 1190s, when King Richard was absent in the Third Crusade and John ruled. Through the 16th century, then, William Shakespeare made mention of Robin and his merry men in several plays, as well as the character of Puck, perhaps. And through the century, we have evidence of efforts to write several other plays featuring Robin Hood. 1600 also gives us the earliest reference from the Sloane manuscript to Robin being of Locksley in Yorkshire, born in 1160. Of this early tradition, this Robin appeared once again in the 18th century in Alfred, Lord Tennyson's 4-act play, which is largely based on the Gest, but uses Richard I and Earl of Huntingdon as parts of the narrative. As time passed, so did the medium and accessibility of Robin Hood. The printing press brought the creation and distribution of broadside ballads, single sheets of cheap paper printed with rhymes or stanzas accessible to the common folk. These ballads were printed, added to, and reproduced largely from the 16th to 19th centuries, either on their own or as small chapbooks, although the oldest extant example, the Sloane manuscript, is not representative of the breadth of material. Some of the older stories were not reproduced for several centuries, and others like the Gest were commonplace. Notably in this format, Alan a Dale was first introduced and became a staple of the Merry Men.
Oh, incidentally, I'm Alan a Dale, a minstrel. Oh, that's an early day folk singer.
By the 18th century, no new poems featuring Robin Hood that were not based on previous ones were being produced, but the chapbooks continued circulating, which kept Robin popular in the minds of the people, although he had taken a bit of a comedic tone once again, rejecting the gentrification attempts in early stage works. By the 1800s, the stories were being adapted for children as well, with edited chapbooks being published. Pierce Egan the Younger published Robin Hood and Little John in 1840, which was so popular that it got translated into French by Alexandre Dumas 32 years later, and in this version, Robin is noble. Howard Pyle produced one of the most influential versions in 1883, The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood, where, besides canonizing Richard I and the Crusades as the time period, he does take from the rich to give to the poor. By this time, the earlier, brutal Robin, the outlaw of the original ballads, has been smoothed into a heroic outlaw with good intentions who opposes tyranny. Pyle does not, however, gentrify Robin, nor does he incorporate Prince John as an enemy. The noble Robin who fights against Norman oppression isn't developed fully until the 1800s in Sir Walter Scott's Ivanhoe, which we discussed in 1819, and Jacques-Nicolas Augustin Thierry's Histoire de la conquête de l'Angleterre par les Normands in 1825. In the 20th century, a few further details were added for the sake of adaptations. Robin became a national hero on screen and stage, and a son who inherited his purpose was created for movie studios to use. Before we move into modern media and movements, let's discuss in deeper detail the historical context of Robin's existence. Was he real? Did he serve in Richard's time or Edward's? Is the grave at Kirklees Robin's? And who was Robin Hood? On the topic of the commonness of the name and its etymology, unfortunately the name Robin Hood doesn't help us narrow the search at all. Robin is a common diminutive of Robert, which itself is one of the most common names to find in England. And following conventions of the time, the surname Hood, by any spelling, would have been common, as it would have been used as a surname for anyone who manufactured headwear often. So, going through Old English records will give you a pretty big amount of Robin Hoods or Robert Hoods, some of whom, yes, are outlaws. Statistically, it's improbable that you wouldn't have any outlaws in such a large sample size. In the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica, hold on, I actually have a physical copy of this. I'm actually mildly excited to show this off. I inherited a bit of a collection of books from my father and grandfather, and because my grandfather was born so long ago and he was an avid book collector, some of the books are quite interesting. So we're talking about the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica. I actually have a complete collection of the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica. I do believe I have the handy volume edition. And so I do actually have this passage about Robin Hood. Herein, the authors make the argument that Wood would have been a common form of spelling for Hood, and his name could have been Robin Wood, of which there are references from the 16th and 17th centuries that begin in 1518. Wood descends from the older Odo last name. The authors of Encyclopedia Britannica, like me, make the comparison of the Robin Hood cycle to the Arthurian cycle by Malory, and also Persistratus and the Homeric epics. In this way, Robin is often presented as the last Saxon holdout against the Normans, likened to Robin Goodfellow as a mischievous fairy entity, a master of disguise, and a prankster. Mr. H. Bradley suggests that the Robin cycle is derived from Aryan myth, with Robin as the god of wind Hodr, as also Woden, and Marian as Morgan the Dawn Maiden, with Friar Tuck as the frost and snow spirit Toki, which does disregard the fact that Marian and Tuck are a later addition, according to the literary history. Sidney Lee also claims Robin was a forest elf, as elves wore hoods. Very astute logic. With that, let's embark upon the investigation and evaluation of all of our proposed historical Robin Hoods, or at least some of them. In the interest of covering this in the most logical order, let's begin with the specific people that scholars have argued over the past few centuries, starting with Robin of Wakefield, put forward by the antiquarian Joseph Hunter. Joseph Hunter proposed two men from the early 14th century, one living in Wakefield and another in the service of Edward II in 1323. The theory goes that Robin Hood was a man of the Lord of Lancaster who rebelled against Edward II and was made an outlaw. Replaying the Gest, Robin then meets the king and secures pardon, becoming his man. This is all based on speculation, though, as no records corroborate it, and some evidence shows that this Robin might have been in service to the king before the uprising and was never, in fact, an outlaw. And within a century of these, there are at least 5 other men, listed as a variant of this name, serving as archers across England, Scotland, and France. We cover a familiar name next, Robert, Earl of Huntingdon. Now, if we place him in history, there is no Robin or Robert as Earl during this period, and the source here is a play written by Anthony Mundy. Suffice to say that while this may inspire later stories, this theory is not possible. Author William Stuteley did later claim that the Earl was named Robert Fitzooth, which also categorically does not match, but leads to a little bit of a fun connection. Fitzooth is connected to Robert Fitz-Odo by J.R. Planche, who believed that the names were confused and that Stuteley met Robert, Lord of Locksley Manor, in 1196, which merits consideration because he was alive during the specified time. Like, this man actually existed. And he was in the Curia Register, the Register of Arms. Evidence shows that he might have been an exiled knight in 1196 in the same year. This Robin is also peripherally connected to both the Sheriff of Nottingham, William Peveril, at the time, and Randolph or Ranulph of Chester, cited by Langland. See, in 1153, when Duke Henry of the Normans, later Henry II, came to England, he awarded the land containing pieces belonging to both Fitz-Odo and Perival to Randolph. If this is accurate, later Ivanhoe popularized Robin of Locksley as his identity. This is, of course, not to be confused with the other Robin of Locksley from the Sloane manuscript, born circa 1160, who lived through the reign of Richard I, outlawed because of the killing of his father, who was acquainted with a Little John, but this age would place him at a lesser probability. Personally, I like the first Robin of Locksley we covered, if we discount him as a noble when the earliest stories describe a yeoman, but we have more to go yet. The earliest Robin Hood in legal record is our next candidate. These records are from 1226, list the outlawing of the man with the Sheriff of York confiscating his belongings. This sheriff, Eustace of Lowdham, would then go on to become the Sheriff of Nottingham in 1232, and York is really only 40 miles from Barnesdale. And while this does cover a period of 10 to 30 years after King Richard and John, an outlaw could have started his career young, been active for 10 to 20 years. This technically fits it fits. To cover our next few options, let's discuss King John and the Magna Carta. In the early 13th century, trouble was brewing between the king and the lords and the nobles. Did England have an absolute monarch and a right to rule outside of the consent of their lords? Tensions and fights over this topic led Lewin ab Iorwerth and many of John's barons to force the king into signing the Magna Carta in 1215. In theory, forcing an answer to the question, in that the king was not absolute and was beholden to his people. It's never quite that simple, though.
I've come to warn you that if you do not stop levying these evil taxes, I shall lead the good people of England in a revolt against you.
And why should the people listen to you?
Because, unlike some other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent.
John did not uphold the Magna Carta, and from 1215 until his death in 1217, the First Barons' War was fought.
Oh, the world will sing of an English king 1,000 years from now. Whenever the history books are kept, they'll call him the phony King of England.
Tensions remained, but war did not immediately rekindle with his successor, Henry III. In 1258, Simon de Montfort formed a parliament, making the king a figurehead after a successful political revolution, the Second Barons' War. However, Prince Edward fled captivity and raised an army, with the two forces meeting at Evesham, Edward being victorious. Even though Montfort was dead, his supporters continued to harass the monarchy, culminating in the Battle of Chesterfield in 1266 near Nottingham. You may wonder why this matters, but this is how we introduce Robert and John Davil, leading the rebel faction after Evesham. Eventually their careers as rebels ended with John being pardoned by Edward I, and very little news about his brother, Robin, or Robert. Although the period is later, we already know that the focus on the reign of Richard I was a later addition, and they do fit most of the other markers for perhaps having inspired the legends. This leaves me with only one other real possibility to share, that of another Montfort rebel, Roger Godberd, who was outlawed and remained at large until 1272. Roger reportedly had a lot of run-ins with the law and evaded justice quite competently, even being pardoned at one point before returning to his life of crime. He may have had the help of a wealthy benefactor, but he is another solid possibility for inspiration. Following the infamy of Godberd and Davils, the name Robin Hood became almost synonymous with outlaws, and it's often recorded in legal documents as a common alias or stock name that denotes the types of crimes committed. Who do you think was the inspiration? Was one of these men actually Robin Hood? I think his identity is actually pretty simple. I don't think Robin Hood ever existed. I think he was a story, an example, a symbol, and a rallying cry. What he represented has changed, but his substance has not, and he lives on today, stronger than any one man could ever be. He is idealized, flawed yet perfect, the common man at its finest. Robin Hood has had an illustrious history in modern media, far too large to ever encompass in a single video, so I'll be brief. He's been represented in films since 1908, literally until the future from now, because there's currently a film that is in production that stars Hugh Jackman and Bill Skarsgård that follows the life of Robin Hood. Some notable cinematic entries are the 1912 Robin Hood with Robert Fraser, the 1938 Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn, the story of Robin Hood and his Merry Men from 1952, Disney's animated Robin Hood, which is in truth based more on the tale of Reynard the Fox, a lesser-known literary figure, but still counts, Robin Hood Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner, Robin Hood Men in Tights with Carrie Ells, and then two of my favorite weird entries, Shrek and Princess of Thieves with Keira Knightley. Not including... This list, of course, does not include the countless TV series, books, games, comics, plays, music, and just about anything else. In the cultural context, Robin Hood's fame and his image have led to other outlaws from all over the world being compared to him, or named the Robin Hood of their various countries. We've already mentioned that he's similar in some ways to William Tell, but he's also been compared to Ishikawa Goemon, Jesus Malverde, Juraj Janosik, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Kayamkulam Kochuni, Liao Tanding, Redmond O'Hanlon, Watt Taylor, and many more. Regardless of the Anglocentrism of calling all these men like Robin Hood, it is representative of a common archetype across cultures, of a gentleman outlaw who redistributes wealth. In more recent history, McCarthyism was actually met with what's known as the Green Feather Movement in the 1950s, where on the campus of Indiana University, the students protested the proposed banning of the story of Robin Hood on the basis that it had been put up for being banned because it promoted communist values. And in 2010, the Robin Hood Tax Organization was launched, which is run by a coalition of international charities that proposes significant financial reform all across the world, and it's actually pretty interesting to read about. But after all this, I'm left with the words of poet Michael Drayton. In this our spacious isle I think there is not one, but he of Robin Hood hath heard, and of Little John. And to the end of time the tales shall never be done, of Scarlock, Georgia Green, and Much the miller's son, of Tuck the merry friar, which many a sermon made, in praise of Robin Hood, his outlaws, and their trade. Now, detailed and long as this may seem already, Robin is not the only person we're covering today. Let's move to Richard Coeur de Lion, or Richard I the Lionheart. Richard was born to King Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine in 1157 in Beaumont Palace in Oxford. He had 7 siblings, although his eldest brother passed before his birth. Genealogy traces his line through William the Conqueror and Matilda of Scotland, making him an Angevin Norman. Contemporary accounts trace his lineage to Alfred the Great and the Anglo-Saxon kings, and through them, Woden and Noah. Angevin tradition also dictates a genealogical link to the fairy or demon Melusine. He likely spent his early childhood in England before his mother took him to visit Normandy. Richard was said to be tall, red or golden-haired, and a handsome boy with long straight limbs and a light-eyed pale complexion. Traditionally at the time, marriage alliances were common in the noble houses of Europe, and Richard was set to marry a daughter of the Count of Barcelona, and he was later betrothed to Alice, Countess of the Vexin, daughter of Louis VII. At 14, with his father ill and his brother crowned, Henry the Younger, he was given Aquitaine and Poitou. Between 1173 and 1174, Henry the Younger, resentful of sharing the crown with his father, with the help of his brothers Richard and Geoffrey and Louis VII, by ways of oaths of vassalage and other promises, began campaigning for support to unseat Henry II. For the support of Louis VII and the French barons, the brothers promised to accept no terms from Henry II without their approval, and promised them money and lands. Henry II also raised an army and took Eleanor, who was loyal to Richard, her favorite son, prisoner. After winning several decisive battles, Henry II offered his sons terms of peace, but Louis VII refused them. Remember, they were beholden to him. Henry the Younger then planned to take some men to England and assist in his rebellion there, but in 1174 this failed spectacularly, with Henry II defeating both Henry the Younger and Louis VII. And when they drew up peace terms, Richard was abandoned by Louis and his brother, so he sought out his father to beg him for clemency. Henry granted this with the kiss of peace, and he was given reduced holdings, 2 castles in Poitou, and half the income of Aquitaine. Henry then sent Richard to punish those who aided him in rebelling, and these campaigns earned him his nomen, one of few English monarchs to hold their nomen more popular than their regnal number in history. Henry, still mistrustful of his sons, is rumored to have then taken Richard's betrothed, the Countess of Vexin, as a mistress to make their union impossible, but Richard held her dowry lands in trust and refused to denounce her. In these campaigns that he was sent on, he was cruel, and the people did try to rise against him in 1179 and in 1181 to 1182. After reconquering his territory, he would then challenge his father again, with the tensions having risen from 1180 to 1183, as he staunchly refused to pay homage to Henry the Younger. Henry the Younger invaded his lands and did try to force Richard into submission with the help of their brother Geoffrey, but he died in 1183, making Richard the eldest surviving son and next in line for the throne. Henry II then demanded that he release Aquitaine to his younger brother John as his inheritance and return to England. Richard refused, and Henry brought Eleanor out of prison, sending her to take Aquitaine and have Richard come back to England. Richard chose to ally himself with Philip II, the son of his mother's ex-husband Louis VII. Eventually, the combined forces of this alliance caused Henry II to name Richard as his heir apparent, and he died 2 days later, with Richard succeeding him as King of England, Duke of Normandy, and Count of Anjou. Through his coronation and early rule, rumors spread about the Jewish populations in England and violence followed. Richard did attempt to stop this, writing an edict, but the following March violence spiked with the massacre at York. Richard at this time had already taken the cross at Anjou, like his father and Philip before, when the news reached them of Saladin's conquering of Jerusalem. Thus he and Philip were to plan the Third Crusade, swearing oaths to renounce his past wicked behavior and spending a massive amount of money to outfit his men, even ransoming William I of Scotland for more money. He sold official court positions and governmental positions for money and forced those who were currently in office to pay to keep their positions. He then appointed a council of regents to rule in his place while he was away. This council included William Marshal, the first Earl of Pembroke, who would serve 5 English monarchs, those 5 being Henry II, Henry the Younger, Richard I, John, and Henry III, Hugh de Poisset, the Bishop of Durham, and William de Mandeville, the 3rd Earl of Essex, who would die a short while later and be temporarily replaced by William Longchamp. I say temporarily because Prince John did not approve of him and began scheming against him. William Marshal would initially side with John against Longchamp, but did not fall in with John's revolt, and instead would join the forces making war against John in 1193. In 1194, his elder brother was killed defending Marlborough for John, and Richard awarded him the succession to the marshalship. Marshal would then serve the king in his wars against Philip II, with Richard making him the custodian of ruin and the royal treasury on his deathbed. And during the interregnum, William supported John's ascension over the claims of Richard's nephew Arthur of Brittany. Through his children, interestingly, William is an ancestor to the Bruce and Stuart Scottish kings, and the last of the Plantagenets, Edward IV to Richard III, and every monarch after Henry VIII.
Is it not also illegal to sit on the king's throne and usurp his power in his absence?
Careful, Robin. You got too far.
The first thing Philip and Richard did on their crusade was force Tancred of Sicily, who had seized the throne by force, to sign a treaty and to release Richard's sister, Queen Joan, the widow of the previous king, with compensation, and then forced him to promise his nephew Arthur to be his heir while agreeing to marry one of Tancred's youngest daughters. They stayed in Sicily for a little, but the plotting started to get absolutely frickin' ridiculous, so Richard ended his betrothal to Alice, and then they left. They next were forced to land in Cyprus because of a huge storm, and all the ships that landed there, including that which carried his new fiancée Berengaria of Navarre, were captured by Isaac Komnenos, the then ruler of Cyprus. In retaliation, Richard took Lemissos with the support of Guy of Lusignan, a prince of the Holy Land, on the promise that he would support Guy in return against Conrad of Montferrat. At this victory, Richard would then name 2 governors of Cyprus, and eventually later he would sell it to Robert de Sable, the leader of the Templars, and it would become a feudal kingdom after its acquisition by Guy of Lusignan. And then he left for Acre in June. He did during this period grow closer to Berengaria, and with the support of his mother, married her. She attended some of his crusades, but left to travel to England, and unfortunately she would not reach England until after his death, as her path was difficult, and thus Richard I would die with no children. Richard landed at Acre, supporting Guy against Conrad, and even though he was ill, with something potentially similar to scurvy called Arnaldia, his forces did help to recapture Acre, and he picked off many men with crossbow bolts from a stretcher on the castle walls. Conrad eventually managed to get the surrender of Saladin, and raised his flags inside the city, and, after offending Leopold of Austria and Philip's departure for health reasons, he was left without allies. Richard then ordered all the Muslim prisoners that he and Philip held to be executed as he moved south, defeating Saladin at Arsuf. In 1191, in the wake of his success, they marched inland towards Jerusalem, arriving in Beit Nuba quickly, and while morale was on their side, the weather was not. They retreated to the coast at Ascalon after failed negotiations with Saladin. Conrad won the right to be crowned king of Jerusalem by an election, but within days he was killed by the Nizari Ishmael order of assassins. Yes, this is the Hashashin. This is Gramps. And days later, Richard's nephew Henry II of Champagne was married to Conrad's widow Isabella. Richard attempted another advance on Jerusalem, but was again forced to retreat in 1192, and the Crusaders split into factions, with Richard wanting Egypt as a base of power, and Hugh III, Duke of Burgundy, insisting on a direct attack of Jerusalem. To which Richard replied that if that was the case, he would participate only as a foot soldier and not as a commander, and without unity, they were forced to again retreat to the coast. Another skirmish with Saladin was won by Richard, and produced the following note by a biographer of Saladin. I have been assured that on that day the King of England, lance in hand, rode along the whole length of our army from right to left, and not one of our soldiers left the ranks to attack him. The Sultan was wroth thereat, and left the battlefield in anger. Richard's position, though, was untenable, and he knew that his brother John in England, and Philip, who had returned to France, would be plotting against him, and he could not continue this crusade. He settled with Saladin in September of 1192, agreeing to the destruction of all of Ascalon's defences in return for Christian pilgrims and merchants to have access to Jerusalem and a 3-year truce. On Richard's journey home, bad weather forced docking at Corfu. Who is this? Odysseus? Which regrettably at the time belonged to the Byzantine Emperor Isaac II Angelos, who did not approve of Cyprus's annexation. Richard set sail disguised as a Templar, but the wreck of his ship forced his travel through Central Europe. He made for the territory of Henry the Lion, but was captured by Leopold of Austria and accused of murdering Conrad, which, to be fair, didn't really look good for him at the time, since his nephew married Conrad's wife less than a couple days after, and this all happened just a few days after his candidate in the election lost to Conrad. Not great optics. He was held prisoner at Dürnstein Castle, and it was not really kept a secret. As a result, Pope Celestine III had to excommunicate Leopold. In 1193, Richard was given to the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV. In 1193, Richard was given to Holy Roman Emperor Henry VI and imprisoned in Trifels Castle. To Richard's great irritation, the Pope was less happy to excommunicate Henry VI, and his captivity worsened. Emperor Henry demanded a ransom equal to the tithe of Saladin to Henry II, which, if we remember, Richard had spent arming his men for the crusade, and equated to 3 times the income of England. His mother worked to raise this sum, and meanwhile, Henry demanded Richard promise his niece to his heir Frederick. Also, remember how John and Philip were plotting back in England? They actually paid Henry VI over half the amount of the ransom to keep him until September of 1194, which Richard actually refused, which I think is hilarious. So, in February of 1194, Richard was released, Leopold died, and Frederick had to abandon marriage to Richard's niece. John learned of his brother's freedom thusly when he was told, "Look to yourself, the devil is loose." While Richard had been in the Holy Land, John had led a revolt with the help of Philip, although once Richard returned, they reconciled and he was named Richard's heir. This fucking family, I swear to God. In 1194, Richard was recrowned to attempt to bury the humiliation of his captivity, and then he proceeded to engage in war against Philip to reclaim the lands in Normandy lost. He claimed defensible land in Rouen, overlooking the Seine, spending tons of money on this campaign, and the building of Chateau Gaillard between 1196 and 1198. The chateau was his favorite residence, and he appears to have headed the construction himself. It was arguably ahead of its time and is a masterpiece. He put all of his not inconsiderate military knowledge, funds, and attention then into reclaiming and defending the Angevin lands from Philip with the aid of invasions from the south, from his allies Baldwin IX of Flanders, Renaud, Count of Boulogne, and his father-in-law, King Sancho VI of Navarre. He claimed Welf in Saxony for Henry the Lion, his nephew, whose son would then be elected Otto IV of Germany in 1198. In March of 1199, Richard was suppressing a revolt in Limousin and was hit in the shoulder with a crossbow bolt. The wound turned gangrenous quickly, and he asked that the shooter be brought before him. This was Pierre Bazil, also called John Sabros, Dudo, and Bertrand de Gordon, a mere boy at the time. Bazil was one of 2 knights defending the tiny besieged keep, and barely had armor. His shield was made from a frying pan. He told Richard he sought vengeance for his father and brothers who were slain by Richard. Richard then ordered he be set free with 11 shillings as a result before he died, and on the 6th of April, 1199, Richard died in the arms of his mother, and there are 2 versions of Bazil's fate recorded. One that he faded into history, and another, an account by the mercenary Mercadier who served Richard, that he had the boy flayed alive and hung as soon as Richard died. Richard died with no heirs, and this eventually resulted in the dissolution of the Angevin Empire, and thus ends the life of Richard I. Richard Coeur de Lion was, during his time and throughout the Middle Ages, known as a valiant and strong king. He possessed great martial prowess, and was himself a poet and a patron of other poets and composers. He has been by contemporaries also placed high in historical tradition, and after his death was romanticized to an extreme as a model king, even though his faults and sins were known and acknowledged. In the 16th century and later, however, he came under fierce scrutiny, as many historians pointed out that he was quite a shit king for England. He spent tons of money on the Third Crusade, which was really just an honor project on behalf of the church where he did most of the work and shouldered the overall failure. He focused on Angevin and the French holdings of the new Norman kings of England, rather than England itself, and spent lots of English money on his continental pursuits. In fact, in his whole time as King of England, he was only in England for about 6 months, and in his last 5 years never returned. In modern scholarship, historians have moved towards more of a middling opinion. He did spend a lot of attention and time on his non-English holdings, but those were still his holdings, and the Angevin Norman Empire controlled a lot of land outside of England. His critics tend to judge his political choice without the hindsight of centuries, where his contemporaries had no such thoughts. Finally, before the end of my section, I was given 2 names in review. I don't really understand the connection, but Sir Peleus of the Arthurian Knights and the Lady Nimue, also called the Lady of the Lake. Sir Peleus is often compared to Tristan and Lancelot, and regarded as one of the fairest knights, and the prettiest. He's famous in fiction for his love of the Lady Ettard. In a great joust, he bested 500 men to give her a circlet of gold, such was his love. Ettard maintained, though, that he had better options, so he swore to follow her home and never forsake his love for her. He spends his days fighting for her honor, and then being humiliated and rebuked by her. Gawain one day, I didn't think I'd be seeing you twice here, Gawain, sees him and hears of his plight. Gawain hatches a plan to visit the lady, under the pretense of having slain Ettard, and they swear oaths to one another to meet after one day and night at the property. Peleus, however, comes late and finds Gawain abed with Ettard. In mourning, he fights with himself over whether he should slay Gawain for this betrayal, repenting and disarming himself eventually to suffer his sadness. One of his knights then brings Lady Nimue to him, and upon seeing him she enchants him to sleep and brings Ettard forth, spelling her to fall in love with him. But when he awakens and sees her, he finds that he hates her more than any other woman, and Nimue, having heard the whole story, takes him with her to Camelot, where they marry and live together in bliss. Peleus never forgives Gawain, and tolerates him only for Arthur, but often during tournaments he would seek him out deliberately to beat the shit out of him, and Nimue herself, in fear of Lancelot, always made it so that those two would never fight. Peleus went on to become one of the 4 knights that took the Sangreal. Yeah?
Yep, that's all I've got for the moment. So, or all I was looking for, I think. So Robin Hood. You've seen him before in campaign.
Yeah.
You know his class,
E
right?
pluribus unum.
Yeah, you know his class.
He's an archer.
Yeah.
He better be an archer. If he's not an archer, what's the point?
Oh, why don't we just rip the Band-Aid off and go right into it?
Okay. Yes, I have seen him. All right, let me get a closer look, though, because I've only seen him in the little FGO screen. Okay.
So chat would kill me if I didn't point
Look,
this
it's
out.
the bird!
Yeah,
Robin!
Robin. It's Robin from the Mihoyo series.
Aw, that's cute. Why does he look like Link from Legend of Zelda?
Because Link's also kind of a green, cloak figure.
Yeah, that's fair. That was a stupid question. Beer. Crossbow, not a longbow. Interesting. I'm surprised that they didn't just choose to do a longbow. But okay. I'll trust the process.
So we're starting today with Robin as the archer servant. Robin we're doing first because Richard is the newer servant with the nicer animations, and I like to end on a bang.
You just want me to appreciate Richard's animations in comparison?
Robin is the enemy archer from Fate Extra. He is not a straight heroic spirit, and is actually much closer to how Fate handled Sekhie Kojiro. He's one of the criminals that would take up the name Robin Hood, that the folktale may have taken inspiration from.
Okay.
And the folktale comes with the to the backbone of his summoning. But there is no Robin Hood of Locksley exactly as the popular folktale describes him.
Mm-hmm.
However, he was definitely a real man and is a hero who has a backstory that's fleshed out. The Robin Hood we're covering today takes heavy inspiration from Robin Hood's death, a very specific rendition of Robin Hood's death.
The one with the Prioress of Kirklees and Roger of Doncaster? Or...
Firing the bow at the base of the tree.
Yeah, okay. So I didn't cover that story in great detail because it's told briefly in the Gest, and I covered it there, but when he is weakened from being bled, he supposedly like sounds his horn and shoots an arrow out the door of the abbey, right? The priory, and it hits that tree, and the grave is under that tree, supposedly. Yeah. And it summons Little John, but Little John doesn't get there in time. Yeah.
So yeah, it takes heavy inspiration from that particular story, and it will say that, and fate will say that this Robin Hood is responsible for a good deal of some of the folklore around Robin Hood.
Mm-hmm.
So this Robin Hood is actually the child of a wandering druid who would teach him how to survive in the forest and how to befriend wildlife and fairies.
Okay.
Because of this, he could talk to invisible fairies, and he was treated as an outcast in his home village because he's talking to things that don't exist.
Okay.
His village would come to suffer under the control of a feudal lord one day, though, and even though he did not like the villagers, he picked up a crossbow fashioned from the wood of a yew tree and adopted the name Robin Hood, who was already an established legend by this point, thanks to the one Robin of Locksley.
Yeah.
He successfully did this by hiding his identity under a hood and wearing green clothes. He would be successful for a time, leaving traps and fighting battles alongside villagers who joined him. So, yes, this is actually where fate will say the Merry Men comes from, is from this particular Robin Hood.
Okay.
He'd be hailed a hero of the village, but ultimately, as the local nobility began taking this out on the villagers, they would turn on him to appease the nobility. This would force him to continue his fight from the shadows, resorting to more and more poisonings and ambushes. A lot more guerrilla warfare.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he himself would wind up assassinated, and as a final wish, he would ask to be buried where his final arrow fell. That's the yew tree part.
Mm-hmm.
His shot landed at the base of the yew tree where he'd fashioned his bow from.
Okay.
That said, before we move into the relationships, I do have to say here that outside of the heroic tale that this man's from, he's kind of an asshole. I can say that now that I've played Fate Extra.
I was going to say, having played E Pluribus Unum.
Remember, his life drove him to rely pretty much on assassinations, so his fighting style in Fate is to take the path of least possible resistance for defeating his foes. He is the only enemy in Fate Extra that will break the rules of the Holy Grail War and assassinate the Master in the save area, all against the will of his Master, resulting in the two of them being penalized for the remainder of the round. Better to ask forgiveness than permission, I suppose.
Yeah, I get. Remainder of the round. So it's a different Holy Grail War than the normal one?
The way the Fate Extra Holy Grail works is it's more like a traditional tournament where there's rounds every week that of two different people specified to face off against each other.
Okay. So kind of like Lost Einherjar.
A little bit. Lost Einherjar, it's still like you can still kill each other or kill the other servants
outside
in the streets,
of, yeah, okay.
It's a little bit more controlled like that, yeah.
All right.
And in general, he's just kind of a piece of shit about the entire ordeal, taking pot shots at his master's sense of chivalry, and in trying to rectify the entire thing, because the master tries to rectify the entire thing, so he takes that pot shot and he starts taking shots at the master on a more personal, moral level.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to Fate Extra CCC and FGO, and he kind of gets what he deserves. He spends a lot of the time in both games being the whipping boy of BB, often ending up fighting in her place and getting the ever-living shit beaten out of him as he's forced to fight often at level 1, because BB has the fun tendency to just steal his hard-grinded levels from him. And at one point, the motivation for Chaldea to get something done was to help Robin not get turned into a pig by B.
Aww.
I used to feel bad for him, but, no.
Then
anymore.
You played the game?
Then I played Fate Extra. BB did nothing wrong.
That's a hot take, that is. Relationships?
Yep.
Okay. This is not August. Starting with the lines, Nero Claudius and Tamaname. Ugh, these two are here too. This time is so gonna be a slapsticks journey, full with weird stuffs on both sides, I bet. Yeah, I mean, between those two. Hey, why don't we rest up here a bit? I just really have a desire to hunt some fox, like that bright pink one over there. It's the perfect target. You about to have Tamamo-no-Mai for dinner. Look at this fool over here, a bowman on the front lines. Hey, you in red, you call that protecting our master? Yeah, I don't think overprotective servants would really benefit the master, you know? Well, I mean, Emiya is an archer, but Emiya is... Is that really an archer? I mean, it's an archer, but... I'm just saying. Whoa, BB's here. That girl's bad news on a nuclear scale. She's based on a very normal kind of person, though. So the sort of trouble she'll cause isn't going to be on a grand scale. That's decent, at least. Cosmically bad is better, is not as,
Yeah.
I've done no such thing. Even if she was bad or anything, there's no way I would smack a lady's butt. I don't know what you're talking about. So that's Lip. Looks like she's matured a bit. Guess I should congratulate her on that. I feel like, doesn't he slap her on the butt?
Yes, he does. He's trying to deny the allegations.
Is it an allegation if it's true?
There were witnesses, at least 2 of them.
So, I mean, it's not really an allegation if it was true. Even Meltrilus is here. What the heck's wrong with your party? Don't you know how they say that every rose has its you-know-what? BB and Lip at least have still a modicum of cuteness, but that woman's seriously dangerous if you get on her bad side. Just be careful. Arguably, Meltrilus is the cutest of all of them, so I don't know what you're smoking, Robin.
CCC Meltrilus is a fucking, monster of a person.
She's still adorable, and I love her. My favorite. Okay, so Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. I mean, it's not like I'm a hero or anything like that, okay? I mean, you kind of are, though. I'm just gonna say it. Well, I'm taking my leave. It's nothing. I'm meeting up with Billy at the cafeteria. We cheap archers are going to drown our sorrows together. I've racked up a bit of a losing streak against him in our card game, so I need to win some back today. That's valid. That's very valid. And he and Billy the Kid, they're on that. They're together on the team in E Pluribus Unum that goes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say because I remember them having a lot of interactions together. If this ever loads. Look at some of the art as I scroll. Once again, if it ever loads.
That's always what you're waiting for.
God forbid. Okay, so that's what it is. All right. Let's see. Just kind of.
Yeah, he was also in a weird crossover thing called Fate Labyrinth.
Okay. Oh yeah, there's Lord Elmaloy.
It's a crossover between prototype fragments, case files of Lord Elmaloy, and then various other things. Like Artoria is in there, and
that's a
Robin
lot.
Hood is in there, along with Asterios.
That's a lot. Okay. All right. Jesus. He's in a lot of story chapters, isn't he?
A decent amount.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm finally at abilities.
So he primarily fights using a mini crossbow strapped to his arm. He's also a fully capable druid, using some of those abilities to help make traps and create poisons. In that regard, he prefers to fight through guerrilla warfare, and that extends to his Holy Grail wars as well. One of his abilities allows him to instantly grow a yew tree that secretes taxine, a toxic chemical. He then creates a bounded field around the tree and his opponents, trapping them inside where they are poisoned to death.
Picasso, I like it. Okay, so he's an old servant, though, right?
Yeah, he is. I don't know if he was launched, but he was pretty close to launch.
I was gonna say, he also doesn't have many skills listed here. Subversive activities, golden rule, yeah. Okay, so 2 noble phantasms. Yew-bow and no-face May-King. Oh! All those references to the May-King back in E Pluribus Unum. Now I think I get it. Okay. Alright, tell me about Yew-bow and no-face May-King.
So the Yew-bow is his crossbow. While he can use it like a normal crossbow, it actually functions uniquely. It's not firing bolts, but rather it's a trigger that causes impurities in the body to explode. These explosions can become more violent if they strike a poison target, at which point the poison pretty much explodes within their body, making it even more lethal. It is also how he grows the tree and is capable of immediately summoning tree roots to entangle targets.
Okay.
The other one, the Faceless King, is Robin Hood's Hood. This allows him to obscure his presence when invoked. When warned he cannot be seen or heard, the only way to find him are to detect his magic signature, or try to find the direction his crossbow shots are coming from, because he cannot use it and the Yew-bow at the same time.
Okay. I do appreciate that he is illustrated in FGO by Arko Wada, who has done, notably, many things. Many
Is
things.
At all related to Fate Extra? Wada Arko's probably involved.
All right, so I've got some noble phantasms to watch.
Yeah.
Make sure those aren't too loud. Oh, so this is from the CCC or Extra?
This is the original Extra.
Original Extra, okay. So there's the yew tree.
Yep.
That's right, Murder Nero. I mean, it's pretty cool. Is it just gonna play it 3 times through, or is there something different?
There's your face as king.
Okay. That's what I was wondering, because it played what I thought was the same thing through twice, but maybe I didn't notice a difference.
There's a slight difference in animation.
Okay. Should I know this?
No, this is just finishing out the round.
Alright.
Hey, look, it killed Nero.
Good.
So this is the CCC animations.
Okay.
Now you get to see him.
Now I get to see him what?
Oh, trounce Emiya.
Oh. I was gonna say in even less pixels?
It's going to take a second. You can skip ahead if you want to.
It's not that long of a video. I think we're getting there, right?
Close.
Yeah, it's gonna appear in a second anyways, so I don't need to skip much else. Ooh, better tree animations. We love that. Oh, and then making.
Oh no, that's just.
Oh, it's just gonna show that. Okay, all right. Now we have
the
FGO.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's interesting that he's wearing a green cape, but his clothes under are closer to like a tealy, almost like verging on blue color, which is interesting. Yeah.
He's had an animation update if you couldn't tell.
I can tell that there's been an update, but it's still not very...
I mean, he's a 3-star. They're not going to make him too crazy.
Okay. I didn't remember what star level he was.
Yeah. That's why he called Billy the other cheap archer.
Oh, is Billy the Kid also a 3-star?
Yep.
Okay.
Like, you have him already. You have Robin Hood already.
Yes, I do. I also have Billy the Kid, I think. Okay. A lot of jumping around, which is pretty cool still, but definitely interested in seeing Yankee. I think at this point, let's skip ahead. Alright. Valid. Nope. It's okay. Fixed it.
And this is like the servant introduction. I found this. There's not that much difference. It's short enough, and it's gonna like just have him in a summer outfit.
Oh yeah.
This actually might show the old animations. I don't know if the update was up at this point.
Interesting. You think that's the old stuff? That looked the same.
Relatively new.
Yeah. I was gonna say the swinging looked the same. Yeah. Yeah. We love the switch of the cloak now being like a Hawaiian flower print instead of green to match the rest of the fit. We love it. Like, I mean, man's got drip, say what you will. Okay.
So this is a little awkward. This is Extella Link.
Okay.
We're probably going to want to hide this from the audience here.
Okay. So what I can do... do we want them to be able to hear it?
I don't think hearing it should be a problem on Extella Link. Not for raw gameplay footage.
Okay. Alright.
Viewing probably shouldn't be an issue at all. That's why I purposely chose not to grab the...
Okay, I was gonna say, because I can play it through my headphones. That is an option.
That might be a more safe for us, to be honest. I'm so jumpy around Extella Link sometimes.
Alright, give me a sec. Alright. Chat should only be picking up my voice now, and they should not be able to see anything.
Not only picking up your voice.
Your voice too.
Yeah.
I mean, automatically. Many more pixels. I like it. Oh, shit, that's cool. That's actually really cool. That's some really cool, like, animation combos.
Extella Link is definitely where you start seeing a lot of... Like, this is one of the more modern Fate games. Even Extella is still like a Vita game.
Aren't you planning to play through this soon?
Next I'm playing Extella. Link will probably take a few months.
Because I have access to this in our Steam Family Library, don't I?
Yes.
Tempting. Very tempting.
You would need to Twitch it, though.
Huh?
If you were to stream it, you would need to Twitch it.
Oh, yeah, well, I probably wouldn't stream it, to be honest. What's with the writing? On, like, the right... Okay, never mind. I was like, there was, like, writing up, like, in the game, part of the decoration.
Yeah, I haven't played this game.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure.
There's a little bit more like you didn't see his NP, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, let me...
It's just like, this is just a tour of its kit, so you can
Yeah,
skip
see?
around
The writing on the walls?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Chat, tell me what's up. Okay, let's see if I can get to his NP. Is that an NP? Or is that just a really cool move? Oh, he's invisible now.
There's the Faceless King.
Ooh. Okay, there's going to be the big NP. Is near the end. Okay.
Combo finisher.
Well, shit. If that's not just, like, the coldest animation, oh my god, look at that shit. It looks so good. God damn. Am I gonna be a Robin Hood simp by the end of this? I might be. God damn. Okay. Alright, let me swap us back.
And we shouldn't need this again. We shouldn't need to hide things again.
Okay. Alright.
Sorry about that, guys. It's probably safe. This YouTube video is obviously up, but we still need to be careful. So, Dan Blackmore. I might as well go over Robin Hood's Master a little bit.
Okay.
So, Robin Hood's Master and Fate Extra, I already discussed the particularly troublesome incident with Robin trying to assassinate the player without his master's permission, but I thought I'd briefly discuss the master himself. This guy is a decorated soldier from England who would fight in wars that led to the state of the world in Fate Extra, where a single conglomerate reigned over the entire planet. He was constantly at battle, so despite his love for his wife Anne, she would die suddenly and without warning.
Aww.
He would be away and return with the regret for not being present at her death. Fast forward, and we find out a Holy Grail war is on the moon, leading to all the hackers in the world trying to get it. He ends up joining the war with the intention of reviving his wife, but at his defeat, he realizes how at peace he is with himself, and that reviving her would be selfish, and that they would go on to reunite anyways in the afterlife. He and Archer would also come to peace with how wrong they were together as master and servant, with Robin Hood thanking Blackmore for letting him fight as a proper hero instead of as an assassin for once.
That's valid.
He even gives Hakuno advice, who is trying to process the deaths of the enemy masters still. So he tells them to find meaning in the deaths they cause and that they should honor those they kill. Obviously, that advice was born from his background as a soldier, and
yes.
Given how little time Hakuno actually spends alive to that point, it can actually lead to Dan being seen as something of a father figure to Hakuno, depending on player choices.
Aw, that's sweet. Okay, I see Richard is next.
Yes. So, our first Richard's a bit of a complicated case. You can take a crack at the class, but it doesn't really matter this time.
Saber?
You'll be right later, but no, we're looking at our writer, I mean.
Oh, okay.
So, you're not getting a design yet. Richard
I'm getting nothing.
is actually part of the backstory for Camelot. The Singularity Camelot that you're playing through right now on the channel. I won't spend much time on this, but prior to the events of Camelot, the Holy Land was under attack by Crusaders being manipulated by Solomon and the Demon God Pillars.
Okay.
They were led by a rider servant calling himself Richard the Lionheart. This was, as far as we know, not actually Richard, as it's noted that he looked nothing like him and was a tyrannical despot that the Knights of the Round Table would ultimately end up fighting against.
Okay.
Actually, I can say this, since you're reading Camelot, he was enough to need to be fought by all three factions that remained during the Camelot chapter. King Hassan himself would step into this conflict without prompting by the other old men of the mountain. like they would need to prompt him later.
Jesus.
Ultimately, his holy grail would be claimed by Ozymandias at the cost of the poor king's head being nearly removed by King Hassan.
Ah, yes, the...
And the Knights of the Round would destroy the fake Richard's army at the cost of many of their own. All right, so now we're going to move on to meatier things. This is something that I feel like we need to lead off in.
Okay.
This is basically the introduction sequence to Hollow Ataraxia.
Okay.
And it's a ghost story in universe that's told in Fuyuki.
Okay.
So.
Alright. And this isn't going to get us copyright or anything?
No.
Okay. Alright. Is there a... back to my roots. Okay. Why is there a long, long hallway leading to the entrance? Why are we looking at a weird bathroom? Me too, A. Me too. That's fair. Oi! Absolutely the fuck not. Nope. Nope. Would not. I don't like it. I don't like this weird hallway. That's like the hallway from like the front door to my bedroom. I don't like being in that hallway in the dark. I'll like run down the hall and like slam the door shut behind me if I've been watching something creepy at night. Also a weird elevator. So is this the art from the game? Is like the color saturation off, or is it
the color
supposed to be?
saturation is originally off, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. It's supposed to be that way?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't like that changed to a different font. It's like a creepypasta, but on YouTube. What the fuck? someone about it. Don't just pretend you can't hear it. Respectfully. I don't like that. I don't like that. Jesus, what the fuck? I'm gonna have nightmares. I'm gonna look down my hallway tonight, knick-knack, and I'm gonna see a creepy little girl standing at the end of it in a red hood, and I will never forgive you for this. Why the fuck would you put this in a... Like, oh, this is creepy. Okay. Alright. Oh, absolutely the fuck... No. Turn around, walk the other way, shut your bedroom door. No. Wait till it's light. No. 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 The fuck not. Nope. I swear to God, if a red hood fucking pops up on this video, I am gonna have... Oh, God. Cover your ears. Go the fuck back to sleep. Shut your door. Put as many doors between you and that fucking door as you can. All of the doors. Do not open it. No. No. Yeah, that's right. Run away. Absolutely the fuck not. The way I would invest in such good earbuds. I hate horror. Just move. This is no longer your house. This is her house. Leave. Find a better place to live that doesn't have a creepy long hallway. Oh my God, no. Absolutely the fuck not. No. Shut the door. Shut the door. Shut the fucking door. No. No. The fuck? No. Out. Out of the house. Her house now. Out. The fuck out of the house. I am gonna have nightmares for weeks. Oh my fucking god. I am gonna have nightmares for weeks over that, you absolute bastard. Absolutely the fuck nuts. No.
Would you believe that story ends with another character beating the shit out, or not beating the shit, like punching the character telling the story because it was too scary?
Good. That is deserved. The fuck not. Okay, moving on.
So, let me introduce you to Ayaka Sajo.
Yeah.
Or, she is probably the closest thing we'll get to a main protagonist of Strange Fake.
Yeah.
We're going to go over now is she's Richard the Lionheart's master-ish. She starts their partnership...
Ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
She starts their partnership by actually turning down the master role and trying to get away from him. I'm not going to spoil everything here, but I'll go over what's made apparent by at least Volume 2. So, spoiler alert for Strange Fake through around Volume 2. Ayaka shares a name and a face with Ayaka Sajo, the second master of Arthur from Prototype, if you remember her.
Yes.
She does not seem to share a backstory, though, as Ayaka's whereabouts and history in the more typical Fate timelines are actually decently well documented, with her being a character in the spin-off work Fate School Life. A work about Fuyuki's Grail War from the perspective of someone not at all involved. Now, that work is considered now to be more or less canon to Strange Fake. What is made clear about this, though, is that Ayaka Sajo has involvement with that urban legend from Fuyuki, the one we just watched.
Jesus.
Let's see. Ayaka is made clear to have connections to that incident that we just watched, and is heavily implied to be Person A from that. So Person A was not a man. That was Ayaka is the first character in Fate to be original to Fate and get gender bent.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and let me see here. So something that happens is that she constantly sees the little girl in the red hood haunting her. Eventually, she would flee her apartment and end up at the Einsburn Castle within the forest near Fuyuki where she would meet one of the homunculi from the Einsburn family, who would send her to the snowfield, the location of the Strange Fate Grail War. Ayaka would be kidnapped, and her captor would try to summon King Arthur, but as he's performing the ritual, he's killed, and the servant summoned Richard would immediately start drawing magical energy from the closest master to him, or the closest master candidate to him. Ayaka, wanting nothing to do with this bullshit, Sajo, and this character are who we go into Strange Fake with.
Okay. So now we're getting to Richard?
Yes.
Okay. Saber?
Yes.
Okay.
Just leaving behind Person A.
Oh, interesting.
So that's his original artwork. He does have newer artwork from...
This stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, I'll go look at that. Right. That's interesting. Okay. Alright. I mean, Picasso, I like it. I'm not sure why
It's just a modern fit.
Okay. That I guess that's the Lionheart, isn't it? It was kind of hard to tell in the other art, but it's supposed to be as like a lion man. Yeah. Okay.
After
right.
Edison's own heart.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're about to go peak himbo. Richard is a fucking King Arthur fanboy, fashioning his look and ideas around the Knights of the Round Table.
Wait, important question here. Are we going with the historical interpretation that Richard is a good king, or that he is a shite king?
As far as we can tell, good.
Okay.
I hate to spoil the events of Strange Fake, but I'll let Volume 2 be my cutoff here. Immediately after his summoning, he would get into a fight with an assassin servant and release an attack he called Excalibur, blowing a hole in the roof of the opera house they were in. Dumbass then proceeds to get arrested by the police, and then he and Ayaka get escorted out. As he's being escorted out, he hops onto the police car and addresses the gathering crowd who just watched their opera house get a new sun window. He apologizes, promising to fund the repair of the opera house through his own coffers.
I love that.
This incident proceeded to give everyone trying to preserve the mystery of Magecraft a heart attack, as Lord Elmaloy begins having to explain social media to men old enough to be actual mummies.
Wait. Sorry, the phrasing there.
Yeah, that's Richard, Big Arthur fanboy with small quantities of brain cells.
Okay. Oh. Okay. All right. I feel like my favorite master was something else. They're not in my memories, but in my records in the throne, in a passage that I can't bring myself to ignore. But that doesn't matter now. Chaldea's master. I'd say you're the best master I had, even if you're not my favorite. There's no hierarchy between the two, I feel. But you just said I'm not your favorite. The Holy Grail, I can tell the story of Sir Galahad's search for the Holy Grail if you have 5 hours available. Or do you mean the Wish Granter? Good question. I have a place I want my song to be heard in, but here that's not necessary, so you should use it to grant your own wish. Master, if you don't have any, why don't we fill the Grail with juice from the grapes of Aquitaine and drink? Okay. So those are first and second ascension. Now all of these next ones are just his first ascension. Okay. King Arthur, as solemn as the stories I've heard, I get it now. This is actually Avalon, not Chaldea. Sorry my admiration is so strong that I need to crack these cheap jokes to avoid saying something actually inappropriate. What, you want me to go talk to her? No, I'm saving that for after I prove myself worthy of being in Chaldea. Let's go, Master. The two of us will write a new epic for King Arthur to watch. 1 King Arthur, 2, a lot. Give me 3 seconds, Master. Okay, I accepted the facts. Brilliant work, Master. Bringing together more King Arthurs is indeed better than bringing together any group of famous commanders. I shall name the squadron Neo Avalon Made in Chaldea. Okay. The Knights of the Rounds. Seeing them in the flesh really is a different experience. Everyone kept telling me the poems were embellishing the story, but to my surprise, the real knights are greater than the tales say. They're mightier, more human, and more prone to shenanigans. So, Master, who is your favorite? Was the big chest?
Gawain?
Gawain!
Or Percival?
Big chest man.
They're both big.
Gawain's the sassy one, right?
The one you were saying was
sassy one. Yeah, Gawain. And then Tristan. And then Percival. I like them all. No amount of talent or curse should suffice to end King Arthur's reign. Yes, Sir Mordred is a knight I respect for managing to end King Arthur's legend. How could I not? I mean, he accomplished the impossible. Huh? Melusine? You mean my ancestor? What, she's not the pan-human Melusine? Makes sense. That's a changeling. I see the full picture now. So it was worth it for me to mention that.
Yeah.
Robin Hood, I see, a hero made from the fantasies weaved by the common folk being elevated into reality, just like Locksley. Don't look so peeved. You're unquestionably a hero. Words from one of the kings you antagonized, and a friend of another Robin. It's the truth. Fair. Gilgamesh, the original king, another amazing one to have, Chaldea. I feel like I may or may not have some modicum of history with him, but it's all excerpts of the collection being composed in the throne. Now, we're both servants of Chaldea, so we'll make this work. Counting on your mediator work, Master. Enkidu, the oldest adventurer from Babylonia. You show signs of knowing me, so could it be that we were enemies somewhere else? Oh, not enemies? We formed an alliance? Sounds good. You're a valuable ally to have. Tell me the whole story later when we have time to spare. My connections to the Templars run deep, so I imagined I had a conversation subject for her, but Master, what's going on with her? Why did the last head of the Templars turn into a lewd Cosmo goat that screams horror movie titles? What happened to the... This just makes me so interested to do Jacques de Molay, because... What? That's certainly a description. Alright, second ascension stuff. I didn't think a King Arthur could get this different from the rest. Actually, they feel on a base level. No big deal. I, a lifelong King Arthur connoisseur, knew at first glance that he was King Arthur. I'll trust this feeling. By the way, Master, how close the Knights of the Round are to this one? You're Merlin. I've heard so much about you in my mother's bedtime stories. Please let me grab you by the leg and make you into an Excalibur on a later opportunity. It will work. Even if the moon were to fall on us, I'd send it back to where it came from. Is he insinuating that he would just grab Merlin by the leg and use him like a club?
Yes.
I can appreciate that. Mandricardo, you're one of my personal inspirations. Your vow to never arm yourself with a sword until you obtain Durandal is something I wanted to imitate, but obviously couldn't. You, however, pulled it off. You were a shining star in a different way than King Arthur was. Can I have an autograph? I have every word of your stories as an adventuring king Huh? He ran away. You're the Conqueror King? You're so much taller than what the books say. Just like Saint Germain told me. Well, my fellow king from another land and time, why don't we take this moment to share some drinks? I'd love to hear the tales of the never-ending expeditions straight from the king's mouth. That bowman flaunting his skills at the kitchen. So that's what his deal is. Fucking Emia. Say, Master, that red-hooded man dressed like Locksley seems to get displeased every time I talk about chivalry in the cafeteria. Am I overthinking it? No. No, I don't think so. Hassan, followers of the mountain sect, you mean? In life, I fought alongside one of you who doesn't seem to be here. What? Why do you look so incredulous? Were my speeches not clear? Huh? Is this insinuating that he was, in fact, complicit in assassinating Conrad of Montferrat? Shakespeare, great writer from future times. It came to my attention that you wrote a magnificent historical drama with my brother as the protagonist. Do let me read it. Doesn't my son also appear? I can't wait. Woohoo! So he doesn't... Richard does not have any legitimate children. It is rumored that he had an illegitimate son. But there were also rumors that he was gay, which most historians don't agree with at this point, but it does remain part of like the history of learning about Richard. You're also called Jean. That's the same name as my younger sister, Queen Joan, who they had to save. Consider me your brother too. I'm very used to being the big bro. Yeah, considering you only really had 2 older brothers. One of them died before you were born and the other one died when you weren't that old. But then you had 5 younger siblings, so... Master, this place is the best. There's so many people who can play music. Amadeus and Salieri are amazing composers. Nobunaga's guitar is so cool. And... Etchan? Mysterious
Heroine Exalter. That's her name.
Oh, okay. Is gracious. The Roman Emperor and the Horned Girl are also pretty nice. Is that what they call death choir noisy baby metal? Well, I mean, Richard was a patron of troubadours and bards, and I mean, he wrote his own music and poetry very often. This Artorium thing is amazing. Just looking at it fills me with power. I'd sell a grail on AmazonS.com to get myself a stock of that. What? They don't fit the lore because they're from another galaxy? Don't sweat the details. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
So, Richard is very powerful and very quick, to the point where he's almost able to keep up with Enkidu without fighting with his sword or armor. He's quick to pick up new talents, from music to learning how to box after watching a boxing movie a single time. Apparently, despite having no brain cells, he's a genius, and the only reason he wasn't more mischievous is that his mother asked him, would the Knights of the Round Table do that? The actual answer to that question is, of course. Yes, there's very little dumb shit they wouldn't do. But that was enough to bring him in line.
He's such a mama's boy. He's such a mama's boy. like I didn't say it in the script, but he's such a mama's boy. Oh my god. Like, genuinely. I swear to God, every, 5 lines when I was doing research is, his mother, his mother, his mother.
Now, time for the question that's probably being asked pretty strongly. What the fuck is up with that third form? And the best answer I can give is, I don't know what the fuck is going on here.
It's a lion.
This is not something that's used in Strange Fake, and is not going to be used in Strange Fake.
Oh.
Presumably, this will be a form he takes in a future FGO event or story chapter. This will probably occur before this video actually drops So
that's why
watching.
We'll have the update. Okay.
So yeah, the extra addendum gets done, this is probably right here where you want to put it, editor Sekhie. Right here in this spot.
Right here.
Where we're sitting.
Right now. And now.
Okay. How was the addendum, guys? You'll watch that, right? So, moving on to his noble phantasms.
Well, hold on. Is it Lionheart? All kinds of talents. I like the displaying talent in multiple fields of martial arts, fine arts. You could have gone next with political. No, you went with sexual affairs as the next thing in that line. His mother always stopped him before he could. Yeah, you told me that, and I did. My fucking God. Okay. So he's got Phantasm, Rounds of Lionheart.
So he has 3 noble phantasms, actually. Utopia, Purgator, Excalibur, and Rounds of Lionheart.
Okay.
I'm going to actually start with Utopia, Purgator.
Okay.
This also might need to be addendumed, but this is a noble phantasm that draws on his accomplishments on the battlefield and becomes flames, engulfing in a strike of his sword. This is something that was added in FGO.
Okay. All right.
The next one, Excalibur. This is the funny one. So, you know how Lancelot has an NP where anything he picks up becomes his noble phantasm?
Yes.
It's like that, but anything Richard picks up can just become Excalibur, and he can fire a fuck you Excalibur beam from it. He did it with a tree branch once. It also gets stronger the better the weapon he uses is.
Beautiful.
So that's why he wants to pick up Merlin and use Merlin as Excalibur.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense now. Okay.
And it would actually work.
That makes sense now. Also, I feel like Merlin deserves that happening to him at least once in life. I just think so. Then Rounds of Lionheart.
Basically, Richard can summon servants with ties to his life. The number changes depending on the magic energy he has, and they aren't as strong as full servants, but there is a full-ass 7 of them that we know of, so here we fucking go.
Who are they?
First is an assassin servant, Loxley. You can actually switch over to the Type Moon page if you want.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah. So, Loxley, it's Robin Hood. This is the original Robin Hood, who the legend was based off of. Though whether he was actually named Robin Hood is unknown, Loxley fights with an arm attached with a crossbow attached like the later Druid Robin Hood does. He is very dexterous and can fire arrows from out of Richard's shadow without being fully summoned.
Okay.
Richard does often have the magical energy to manifest Loxley fully.
Okay.
The next one is Pierre Basiles.
Who we discussed?
Yep.
Oh.
He is a master archer and is unreasonably expensive for Richard to manifest, so he can almost never be manifested. He can independently create and provide weapons to Richard and his 6 other round servants.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh yeah, and he's an archer.
All right.
So the other ones we don't have fun pictures and pages for, so I didn't pull them up.
Okay.
Rider William Marshall.
Who we also discussed.
He is a horseman who can be manifested with a lance to fight for Richard. More often, though, Richard will use less magical energy to just summon the horse and use that as a mount.
Oh, boy.
The next one is Castor Nimue.
All right. How is this connected?
So, yes, it's the Lady of the Fucking Lake from Arthurian mythology. It's not clear how she knew Richard, but I will take the moment to remind everyone that Fate Nimue equals Vivian equals Morgan Le Fay. That is to say...
Morgan the Dawn Maiden. From that one version, maybe.
I wonder if Fate would draw that at some point in the future, because they haven't drawn that parallel yet, as far as the wiki is telling me. And
possibly. Okay.
That would make some sense.
Yeah. All right.
But she's an incredible magus who provides buffs to Richard in combat and can do some fighting on her own using droplets of water and light.
Okay.
The next one is Saber Serpilius, another figure from Arthurian legend. He's a soul knight to flee Camlan, and he's here because he exchanged vows with Nimue. It's unknown if Richard can fully manifest him, but he is able to lend Richard one of his many swords in combat.
Okay. All right.
And then we have 2 more. Neither of them have classes that are known. Ivanhoe.
Which makes sense. We talked about his story.
But we know he's there, and we just don't know what he does.
Okay.
And then lastly, we don't know who this fucker is. Thank you, Fate.
Okay.
Even Richard says he has no idea who the hell this is.
Beautiful. Stunning. We love that. We absolutely love that. Okay, I have a...
Bear in mind there are going to be different forms with different animations here, because this is like...
Very new servant, and the forms are very different.
New. Try the second newest servant right now.
Oh, yeah, because didn't he come out for Christmas?
He was our New Year's servant.
New Year's, okay. I do really like his first ascension. I think it might be my favorite. Like, genuinely.
This is the one from Strange Fake, so
It's-
this is his battle.
Nope. Go the fuck back up. Go the fuck back up to 2160p. Wow. Impressive. I can tell he's new. Oh, Jesus. Who needs a sword when you got these fists, bro? Apparently. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a branch of a tree being used as Excalibur. Beautiful.
Yep. Just part of his animation is just Excalibur.
Yeah, beautiful. Ooh, hits hard. The stupid fucking knights. I hate those things, those enemies. They're the worst.
Yeah, no, you fought a bunch of them.
I know.
They're always tanky with their HP.
They're awful. I don't like them. Okay.
Oh wait, no, he might be the third newest servant actually. Yeah, he's the third newest servant, not second.
I love just whipping out the guitar. Da-da-da. Very kingly. Just riffing the electric guitar. Honestly, God tier. God tier. Okay, first NP. Oh, yeah. That looks way better. Yeah. Beautiful. Oh, there's big lion, man.
He's got Sanji thing going. He has the sword in the mouth. No, wait, no, Zoro. Sorry.
My soul just cried out. In pain. I have no issue with it. But it is just it's not even like the body of a man, the head of a lion. That is just a lion standing. That's a furry. That's a furry. That is just a lion. That is vaguely anthropomorphic. You think they took inspiration from Disney's Robin Hood?
I don't know. Nobody knows what's going on with this yet. Well, the me from like 10 minutes ago or so might know. But this me doesn't know.
Goodness. My God. I mean, it's pretty fucking cool.
He kind of reminds me of a Dark Souls boss.
He kind of reminds me of an Elden Ring boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. I mean, to be fair, I'm not super surprised that they decided to go like something lion with him, because I mean, his name, the Lionheart, like Coeur de Lion. He is one of the only monarchs in British history to be more known by their like nomen than by their regnal number.
Now imagine this: New Year's Eve, you watch the presentation where Richard gets announced, and they show off his normal strange fake form. That's all they show off. So you finally log into the game, and you start ascending him. You finally get to that final ascension, and then it's like, oh, what the hell?
Oh, I could see why that would be shocking. I could see why.
Remember, this is a character we've known, like, pretty much since I got into Fate. Because Strange Fake started coming out around the time I got into Fate.
Okay.
And now he's a lion. A Lion King.
Very interesting. Shut up. Oh, that's cool as fuck. No complaints. That's like the coolest oh my god. That's amazing. How can you not love that? Okay. Go off, King.
So what we have now are CEs.
Oh, yeah. And other art if we find any.
Yep.
So we've got April Fools. Very cute. Dream Strikers. And... No, the first one was... Second one's Dream Strikers. This one's Dream Strikers, but he's still
Grail
got...
League is the first one.
Yeah, he's still got Robin with him, and the ball is green. It's very green. Okay. Oh, wow. Jesus.
A lot of animation frames.
Jesus! Christ on a cracker. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Okay, so we do have a little bit of extra art down here. Close up of the crossbow. I know everyone here.
Yes, you do.
Yup. In the name of the moon, we're gonna punish these villains. Damn, we're golden. I know 2 of those people. I think I know 2 of those people. Okay. Festive wear. I know all of these people.
Yep.
Beautiful. Beautiful. We love... Oh! Oh! Is he in here? He is! With a deer!
So who's left?
Him. And him. And him.
I think we've got the entire bottom row.
Yeah. Just 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Mouse, horse, and tiger. Yeah. Oh.
What if I were told you and there were technically
Okay.
4 servants in there that you don't know? You're not gonna don't look. You won't find them. You won't find them. Stop.
Now I want to know. Okay.
We will get there when we get there.
All right. I recognize some of these already. All right, so we just saw that, but art close up. 4 beasts in the moonlight. In the name of the moon, we're gonna punish these villains. Damn, we're golden! 4 shadows lightened by the full moon. This pack of 4 wolves wanders from town to town, punishing villains in the name of the moon goddess. A fantastic tale of swordsmanship and heart-pumping action is about to begin. That aside, the bear is useless. Valid. No face making. Okay. Nothing more than a scoundrel, no difference than a bandit. Not something you'd want your name associated with. A hood and mud suit you well. Humans do well when they focus on hiding themselves. No one will hate them and no one will target them. If no one depends on them, no one will love them either. Whoever thinks that living like that would be easier, they stop being human. Do you think you've managed to acquire a lot of things? Unfortunately for you, that's just an illusion. A man without a face also has no eyes to see. He cannot obtain anything. That is surprisingly sad. Okay, cheers to 2017. I just need to find him.
There's Cock Robin.
Yes.
Wonder if
I
that's
see
just
Ibuki.
Cock Robin.
Maybe it is. I'm just gonna... Okay. Here's how we solve this. Blue Robin. Yeah, okay. So it is just Cock Robin. I caught everyone else, but... Alright, nameless souvenir coins of Cock Robin. Okay. The item was issued when the new lord started his post after the first lord of the town was defeated. It seems it's some sort of commemorative item to Robin. You can use it as a talisman or even sell it. His relationship with the mysterious blue bird began here. Okay. So Neverland, I did just double check. That is Kid Gill. I thought it was. It is.
So you know everyone.
Yeah. Whoa, you dropped into this world too? The next thing you know, you are in a land of dreams where any wish can come true. Led by a pretty rosy-cheeked fairy who has named himself Tinkergill, you join a green-colored hero who resisted the short shorts until the very end to go exterminate pirates. It Even if you defeat me again and again, another will take my place. After an intense battle, a familiar-looking black-bearded man gets captured and put in a compromising position, but laughs defiantly. Will this great adventure in an imaginary world continue? Second star on the right and straight on till midnight. It's Neverland. Okay, so this is just the art for Extella Link.
Yep.
Of who I think I know everyone now, right?
Yep.
I do officially know everyone. Finally. All right, Hikeshi Spirits. I have also seen this before, but now I think I know everyone.
Yes, you do know everyone now.
Since I've seen it before, I will not be reading it. Heroic Spirit festive wear for the 4th anniversary. He's got a little robin patch on his shirt. That's cute. I don't love the colors, but like, I guess. Some of the earlier ones I'm not super convinced on. This one I've also seen before and read. I think when we did Anderson. But now I know everyone in it.
Yep.
Come on. The Sook. All right, this is new. But it is once again Anderson and Vlad the Third. Not Vladdy. That's Grandpa Vlad. Oh,
Very new.
That new. The market is lined with a variety of products from all over the world. Even though you know you can't fit any more in your bag, it's a pain to resist the temptation of so many colorful items. That's why the joy of choosing one is so special. Interesting. Is this...
Oh, look, there's more. There's some concept art.
Yeah. Interesting. So souk is an Arabian word for like a marketplace. So they are in. Interesting. Something I didn't mention with the Robin Hood story is because I read this several times in my research, but because of associating Robin Hood with Richard I and Richard I with Saladin and the Crusades, it's actually become commonplace in media to incorporate Muslim or Saracen character, like one token Muslim or Saracen character into like any adaptation of Robin Hood in like the last 40, 50 years, which is interesting. Okay, Richard.
He is much newer. There should be a lot less on him, but there's probably some good stuff here from the anime.
Oh, he doesn't even have an April Fool's because he's so young. Oh.
Oh God, this has to be when we do in the final video.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Look at all those frames.
Oh my God. Well, actually, we didn't see this one at all, as a like in the animation. So interesting. He's very dynamic as a character. Does a lot of moving. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of weird movements.
Look at that backflip.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Jesus. It's so many. Okay. No extra art, but we have 3 CEs.
There's actually a couple pieces of art I don't think we saw of Richard.
I clicked into them in the...
Oh no, like a couple like their promotional arts.
Yeah. They were in his other page.
Oh.
I clicked into them while you were talking and looked through a bunch of them. I did. Okay. Don't worry. Is he standing on top of an ambulance?
That's
or a fire
police
engine?
vehicle.
Oh.
That's the scene I was talking about where he addresses the crowd and goes full himbo.
Oh. There is a holy grail war covered in lies, a missing servant class, impossible servant summonings, a nation shrouded in secrecy, and a city created as a battleground. In the face of such irregularities, the Holy Grail War is twisted and driven into the depth of madness. Let the curtain rise on a masquerade of humans and heroes, made to dance upon the stage of a false Holy Grail.
Oh, that's a fire engine, apparently. I was wrong.
That's what I thought it was. Look at this, not a police vehicle.
Meh.
3-headed lion, 3 shadowed maidens. Interesting. Okay, let's see what this says. A strange but enthusiastic priest said, the Lionheart King has 3 daughters, arrogance, greed, and lewdness. If we don't keep him away, only destruction awaits the king. In response to this, the Lionheart King is said to have replied, arrogance goes to knights, greed goes to religious orders, and wickedness goes to the church. Regarding this saber spiritual origin, Lionheart King says, I don't mean to abandon my daughter because she gets in the way of my hegemony, nor do I mean to corrupt the knight order or the church. Pride and loyalty, greed and charity, lewdness and purity, these are all part of human nature. If we accept both sin and virtue and make them our relatives, we'll probably have a less boring family, right? Well, it's a master's normal sense to choose a marriage partner arbitrarily, although it may not suit. It certainly seems interesting to see sin and virtue attracted to each other after a violent conflict. Good, let's ask Nagiko-san or Mr. Shakespeare to review it. The 3 lions and the 3 girls who bear the name of deadly sin, each of them is a piece of a strange and fierce king. Interesting.
Nagiko, do you remember who that is?
No.
That's Seishanagon.
Oh. Okay, in the crenelle of a battlefront, I swear to fucking God, if this is about him shooting crossbow bolts from the... Because the crenelle is the... You know what it is.
Yeah.
Fucking... Pretty sure that's a lute, too.
Yeah, that is a lute.
Yeah. Oh boy. Man, you're really going for text heavy over here.
Brand new servant. They all go text heavy.
A return gift from Richard I, the Lionheart King. During an important peace negotiation, the sound of a stringed instrument played by a female player and her singing captured the lion's heart. The Lionheart King was so excited that he told the general he was negotiating with, "You are my best friend, please marry my sister and rule this land together." In the end, the marriage proposal did not materialize. It is sad that the Lionheart King was lectured to by his younger sister, Jean, who suddenly approached him with cold eyes that seemed to freeze everyone. Even after becoming a heroic spirit, the atmosphere of that feast remained in my memory, making it the perfect way to repay my master. With this in mind, the Lionheart King's actions were as fast as his godly speed, to the extent that he took away the master even before he received the chocolates. If my sister had been there, she would have said the same thing she did when the topic of marriage was brought up. That's the point, Nissan. Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, that's Robin Hood and Richard the Lionheart.
I cannot wait to get more about Richard, I think. Yeah.
Are you curious about the giant beast form?
I'm very curious about the giant beast form, yes. Are you not also curious?
Well, I'm pretty damn curious.
About the giant fucking beast form. Alright, actually. You're not going to get a hint at the end of this video because this is a VOD coming down from a stream. And we would have already given a hint.
We'll give an extra hint to the video, the one that goes up before this. We'll probably say that Richard's coming next, and then we'll give a hint to the one after Richard too.
Yeah.